Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we are going to continue the chapter roots, and we are going to discuss about the characteristics and modification of roots. The topics that we are going to discuss are characteristics of roots, modification of roots on the basis of functions, nematophores, and functions of nematophores. So first of all, we are going to discuss the characteristics of roots. Root is basically the underground part of the plant. You all know that. It is positively geotrophic and positively hydrotrophic and negatively phototrophic. That means it grows downward in the soil and it grows always toward the source of water and grows away from the sunlight. Root is cylindrical and non-green part of the plant because it lacks chlorophyll. But there are some plants having roots green in color, such as Trepa and Teniophyllum. These are small hydrophytes. Their roots have chlorophyll content, that's why they are green in color. Root does not bear nodes, internodes, leaves or buds. Example is sweet potato. The root tip is subterminal end position and it is protected by a root cape that is called calyptra. Calyptra, along with the root hairs, which are unicellular, increase the absorptive surface of the roots for nutrition and water. Next, we are going to discuss about the modification of roots. So we are going to discuss the modification of two types of roots: tape roots and adventitious roots. We have already discussed, but for your convenience, we will define tape roots. What are tape roots? These are the roots which arise from the radicle, and adventitious roots are the roots which arise from any part of the plant except radicle. That's the difference. First of all, we will discuss about the modification of roots and the purpose for which these modifications are made. So there are three purposes. The first one is food storage, the second one is respiration, and third one is nitrogen fixation. On the basis of these three purposes, there are several kinds of root modifications, and we will discuss them one by one in next slides. We are going to discuss the purposes of the root modification and adventitious roots. So there are also three purposes. The first one is food storage, the second one is support, and the third one is a type of modification for some special function or additive functions. And the roots, according to these modifications, are epiphytic roots, sucking roots, floating roots, assimilatory roots, mycorrhizal roots, and reproductive roots. We are going to take start from the modification of tape roots. As we have discussed, there are certain purposes for the modification of roots. The first purpose is storage, food storage purpose. On the basis of food storage, root acquire different shapes and they have been divided according to their different shapes. The first one, as you can see over here, the conical roots are broad at the base and conical at the apex. Example is carrot. Here in this image, you can see they are broad at the base and conical at the apex. The next type is fusiform roots. These are swollen in the middle and tapered towards the apex. The next type is napiform roots, which are spherical at the base and tapered towards the apex. Example is turnip. You can see here. And the next type is tuberous roots. These are having no specific shape. They appear thick and fleshy. Example is 4 o'clock plant, which is also called Gulabasi plant. The next purpose of taproot modification is respiration, and for this purpose, certain roots emerge out of the ground and grow upward to get oxygen and respiration. Such type of roots are called nematophores, and these type of roots are present in many plants. An example given here is rhizophora. Rhizophora are salty plants or halophytes. They reside in swampy areas. So these roots which emerge out of the ground have certain minute pores which are called lenticels. These lenticels get oxygen and help the plant to respire. This image show clearly this. You can see here, then these are the metaphors. They grow out of the ground and these have lenticels and help in respiration. The next modification in root is for nitrogen fixation, and the roots are called nodulated roots. These roots are found in leguminous plants. The roots are swollen and having nitrogen fixing bacteria inside them, such as rhizobium. These rhizobium help in fixing atmospheric nitrogen into nitrates, which is easily available to the plant for absorption. In this image you can clearly see these swellings are nodules. Inside the nodules rhizobium reside, and rhizobium help in nitrogen fixation. Next, we are going to discuss about the modification of adventitious roots. As we have discussed, there are certain purposes of modification in adventitious roots too. The first one is the food storage, and on the basis of food storage, adventitious roots have been divided into many types, and the first one is simple tuberous roots. You can see over here, these roots have no specific shape. They can either be elongated, tuberous, or round, somehow round in shape. Example is sweet potato. The next type is the nodulous roots. These roots, these are single bead roots, and how they are formed, they swell up at the end, and example is ginger and turmeric. They have definite shape. You can see in the image. The next type is the moniliform roots. These roots are found in grasses. You can see in the image they are constricted and swollen. Annulated roots are the modified tape roots, which have a very beautiful and specific appearance. The roots arrange themselves in the form of discs, and they arrange one upon the other, make stakes, and the example of the plant is Ipecac plant. Fasciculated roots are the modification of tape roots, the modification of adventitious roots. And this type of roots, a cluster of tuberous arises from the base of the stem, and again here the purpose is support. Example is dahlia, roelia, and asparagus. For support purpose, the roots have been modified into different forms, and the first one is the prop root. The prop roots are actually aerial roots. They arises from the branches of the plant or tree, and they go downward towards the soil and penetrate in the soil. Once they penetrate in the soil, so they give a firm support to the tree or plant. You can see over here, this is banyan tree. So they hang downward and penetrate in the soil, and the purpose is support. The next type of root is the stilt root. These roots grow obliquely from the basal nodes of the sugar cane. You can see sugar cane is very common, and you all would have seen this condition. You look at here, from the node of the stem these roots arises, and their function is to give support. That is called stilt root. The next type of modification is the climbing, and the roots are called climbing roots. You can see here very clearly from the node these roots are given out, and they climb over other support or plant. You can see over here, this is climbing around or curling itself around the support. Example is the money plant. Clinging roots are roots. These enter in the cerevisices of some support and fix the plant. Example is epiphytic orchids. Buttress roots are also meant for the purpose of support, and they give a very firm support to the tree, because you can see here they are pretty strong, clearly visible in the image. They are vertically elongated basal part of the stem, which spread in different directions in the soil. They are very compressed in their appearance horizontally, and they appear like planks. The example is the bombex. Now we will discuss about the modifications of the adventitious roots, which are for some special functions or purposes. So the first type of root for performing some special function is the epiphytic root. As the name indicates, these roots are aerial, hanging and spongy, and they have porous walls. And porous wall means that they absorb moisture and nutrients from the atmosphere. These aerial roots possess a spongy-like tissue, which is known as velamen. Velamen absorbs moisture and also store it, and they have that is the mean of their contact with the soil. Sucking roots. This is another kind of adventitious root modification for some special functions. And what is the special functions? As you all know, cuscuta, which is a kind of angiosperm, which is lacking chlorophyll content. It is non-green, non-chlorophyllous plant, and it is always dependent for its food on other plants. So cuscuta give rise their roots from the nodes and penetrate them into host tissue. Once they enter their roots into the host, which are also called parasitic roots or storia, they get their nutrients and water from the host plant. They are microscopic. We cannot see them with visible or naked eye. Floating roots is a kind of modified root for some special purposes of the adventitious root. As you can see here, these are the roots given by the base of the plants, and these help in the buoyancy of the plant. Also, they help in floating and respiration. Next type is the assimilatory root. Assimilatory roots, as the name indicate, they are meant for the purpose of photosynthesis in carbon dioxide. They assimilate carbohydrate, which is actually done by the leaf or many rare cases the stem. Here in this case, this thread-like structure is the assimilatory root which perform this function. The next type is the mycorrhizal root. The mycorrhizal root is actually an association between the fungus and the roots of higher plants. Here the example is the pinus. This association is symbiotic association in which both the partners, they get benefit from each other. The fungus get food, that is nutrients, and the higher plants get an elaborated surface of absorption in the soil. The next type of the adventitious root that are modified for special purposes is the reproductive roots. As its name indicates, certain roots bear some buds or some parts. As these buds detaches from the parent plant, they have the capability to grow into an adult plant. We are going to discuss into a special type of root that is called nematophore. We already discussed shortly this into the adventitious root types for the purpose of getting oxygen and better respiration. So here we are going to discuss it in details, and that is, nematophore is a specialized structure developed from the root in certain plants growing in swamps and marshes, serving as a respiratory organ. We already have discussed that they grow out certain parts of the ground which are having lenticels, and they help in getting oxygen. Now the question is, how and why nematophore develop? So the answer is, some plants do not have any taproot. They form radial roots and they are profusely branched. So they are so profusely and messy, and the swampy conditions add to the anaerobic condition, and they cannot respire. So from these radial roots, small anchoring roots are given off, and vertical nematophores or breathing roots protrude above the surface. In Avicennia species, these are slender and flexible. The type of nematophore, these are slender and flexible, while in Soneraceae species, they are strong and woody. And in case of Rhizophora species, they set a branching prop root from which succession of long arched roots are given out, and they serve as a nematophore. These are the pictures of different kinds of the nematophores in different plants. You can see here, these are soft and flexible, also soft and flexible, hard and woody. These are hard and woody, and here you can see these are also hard and woody. So these are different types of nematophores, their flexibility and structure in different plants. Now the question is, what does they do for a plant? So the first function they perform, they develop superficial rooting system. This rooting system serves first for shallow anchoring, and then they absorb water and oxygen in largely anoxic surroundings. These roots give mechanical support to the tree, and also they perform nutritive function, that is the assimilation of oxygen and nutrition. They cause various adaptation to the root systems, that is aiding in respiration and in anchoring of the plant. At the end, these are the references. I have highlighted the names of the books in red, and I have followed this link, which is having a pretty good explanation of the type of the adventitious and taproots modifications. So you can follow these books, you can read these books, and you can get help from them. Thank you so much. Allah Hafiz.